Good afternoon and welcome back to the West Ham Network. I'm Anton, bringing to you today's player ratings, all your opinions, all your views, and you will get a chance to come on and have your say. So there's the number below. Dial it, get dialing, get your opinion, come in and we'll go through the ratings. I mean, listen, it's a nice way to bounce back. We desperately needed that victory, and it seems to be that, you know, when we need a victory, we pull up trumps and get a victory from absolutely nowhere. But it's not just absolutely nowhere. It's about having all of our best players available when they are there, and we are reliant. Yes, we are. There's no ifs and buts about it. We're reliant on our best players, in particular Paketa, having him back. And it's not just about what he does with the ball. It's about what his movement does. And you do find that when better players are on the park, the other players rise to the occasion. And I think just his presence around the football park was very, very key to West Ham's progression last night. There are always different ways you can look at this. Myself, Russ, Dan, Luke, everyone in the West Ham Network chat have been going off this morning talking about what we are missing or what now we do moving forward, because we've got such a big game coming up against Everton. It's really vital that we keep momentum. It's huge to keep momentum. And yeah, listen, if we talk about the game in itself, it was such a breath of fresh air. And I suppose that's where the frustration comes with West Ham fans. It's the breath of fresh air is, when do we keep that momentum? Why do we not do it on a more regular occasion? That's the key element for me. Why do we not do this on a more regular occasion? What puts the brakes on? What stops West Ham from doing it? What stops us? We all know it's David Moyes, right? But let's address the elephant in the room. But why is the point? We all understand consolidation, but do you know what? See that point against Sheffield United. See that point against Bournemouth. Were they worth getting the point when you're not in any danger of getting relegated? Or is it not worth going all out to get the full-blown victory that we so desperately need? And that is exactly what I feel West Ham should be doing. Of course, we've become a kind of reliant on these big players. But essentially, when you've got these big players, then you need to keep pushing on and keep building that momentum. But when you lose those players, that's the problem. What do West Ham have? They don't have a plan B, and that's where the biggest concern is. If you are watching, you want to dial in, dial the number below. You can come in and have your say before we do jump into the ratings for the game. Let me go and jump into the chat and see who's kicking about. Michael Blease says, oi, oi, Hammers family, was I watching the wrong team yesterday? Where did that come from? A great game. And it's funny, you know, it's true what some of the people are saying. You know, it seems to be once in every 10 games we suddenly get a high-level performance from the team. And whether or not that is actually a David Moyes decision, or is that an individual decision? Is that individual quality and brilliance from the players? Has Moyes' instructions led to that performance last night? I suppose at the end of the day, no one will really know. Mark Pendleton, good afternoon, Rusty B, and the chat. Well, it's Anton. And for your reference, if none of you have actually seen it, there's a very good show on Tippy Tappy, the No Tippy Tappy Football Podcast, where Tim Sherwood interviews Mark Warburton and talks about what Mark Warburton says is the real reason why he left West Ham. So make sure you do go and check that out. And what's interesting as well is when you start to think of maybe the more finer details of what potentially David Moyes has been offered in terms of his new contract. We are, you know, privy to some information. Whether it's true or not, we'll never really necessarily know. But we are given information, and some of the information we've been given, we have put out on the finer details of what the contract offer is on the table for David Moyes. What's interesting about the contract offer is that, as Russ said, it's not a manager's contract. It's more of a coach contract. We don't necessarily know the actual facts. However, if there is, then maybe that's the reason why both Moyes and both the club are holding off to see whether or not he can change his dynamics of how he looks into a football game, because we absolutely would have to change. We would absolutely have to change, and Moyes' mindset would have to change, and it would be less consolidation, but more pushing forward for it as well. Sorry, Matt Foster, you said good win, but if we don't win on Saturday, then it'll just be papering over the cracks, I think. And that's what we need. We need that run of games. We need that momentum, particularly going into the Europa League game, but essentially just to get the club back on track, to get the players back on track. We absolutely need that momentum. We relied on that momentum for several years, in particular, not last year, but the season before. Momentum in Europe, absolutely, but in the Premier League, no. But the season before that, we relied heavily on momentum in the Premier League, and we need to bring that consistency back, something we've absolutely missed. And yeah, you're right, Matt, that would be papering over the cracks. And the concern I've got, I suppose, going into the Everton game is, does Moyes resort back to type? And that's what we don't want. We want to avoid Moyes resorting back to type. So let's hope that he does not resort back to type as well. Mark Pemberton says 4 goals, all from open play. We were spoilt, and you can say that again. They were all fantastic goals. Freddie didn't watch the game with me last night, but the first thing he said to me this morning when he woke up was, what was the score? I told him, and I showed him the goals, and he was really excited, in particular from Emerson Palmieri, who for me has massively deserved that goal, and what a goal to score as well. I feel like sometimes he's a player that really puts his brakes on. I don't think I think he's performing really well, and I don't think he's performing at 100%, because I feel like he puts his own brakes on. I feel like sometimes he gets the ball, he's definitely got the pace to get forward, but he never really drives at those opposition teams. And maybe there's an element of fear that if he does go too far forward, we've not got anyone tracking back to support him in that area. Who knows? Good afternoon to you as well. Hi, Anthony. Hope you're well. That proves that Moyes can play attacking football when he wants to. But we've seen it on an occasion. That's what's really frustrating, I think, particularly between our fans, is that is definitely a frustrating thing to have, is that we know we've got it in amongst us. And I feel like if we had use those tactics in the games against Bournemouth, the games against Sheffield United, the games earlier in the season, we would be probably 6 to 8 to 9 points better off for the season from where we are at now, if we have taken those tactics against Brentford, taken those tactics against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, and put them into those games. Like, we would be better off, and that's the frustrating thing. Because we know we're capable of doing it on the day. Hi, Anton. Listen, and also on top of that, I am still concerned heavily about our defense. I'm concerned about our strength and depth, but really predominantly it's our defense. I'm unsure of why that's gone so dramatically down. And I can't believe I'm still saying it, but we've never recovered from Craig Dawson leaving the club. And we have, when he left, it seems to be a bigger shake-up than we've ever had. Yemeni Billy Bob says, hi, Anton. Alan Dunn says, hi, evening, Anton. Would love to watch that sort of play for the rest of the season. Absolutely. Only worry is Zuma was at fault for both goals. He isn't a Prem player anymore. His legs are gone. Absolutely. At the end of the game, you will have seen him running far up the field. Him and Mavropanos, what was concerning was we had a 3-goal cushion. We were 4-1 up. There was 10 minutes to go. And Mavropanos and Zuma are not the type of players that can step out of their positions. And they were doing it too far up the pitch because they don't have the pace to recover. And Mavropanos done that for the goal that Wissa scored in the 82nd minute. And it allowed them to play a simple ball through the back of the central defence. And it left Zuma to chase one-on-one with a player. He's never going to get there. He was never going to get there. And then in a right near the end, Zuma did it again. But he missed the ball and he tried to recover, but he recovered by limping back. And what I was concerned about was when you're 4-1 up and you're consolidating, West Ham have no consistency in our approach. So we play a low block, but it seems to be when we play the high block and we've got a 3-goal cushion, we just throw everyone forward. And there's no kind of real tactical mindset behind it. And I was really shocked at watching Mavropanos and Zuma stepping out all the time when there was no need to. And that's what made us have a shaky last 10 minutes. I couldn't believe it. We had a 2-goal cushion with 7 minutes of injury time to go, and I still felt like they would have scored. I couldn't help it. It was giving me that fear. Kudus, Paketa, Bowen, Emerson, Sufal, etc. were awesome. Not happy we conceded 2 goals. Both Mavropanos and Zuma were responsible for the goals we conceded. Completely agree. Dan Roberts, fully agree. I think Paketa is the only thing that unlocks the full attack from Dan. Absolutely. Not buying a Paketa, Lenzini, backup flair player cost us this season. Yeah, baffled, to be honest. Why? Yeah, I can see that. Baffled. It is escaping. Baffled why we never done squad depth, but that's just going to be something we're going to have to live with now until the end of the season, unfortunately. Emerson scored the goal of the season when we played well, but we still have to drop Zuma, absolutely. Yes, I need to fix it, don't you worry. Ruby Tuesday, good afternoon, Anton, and chat. Saw Warburton's interview. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Afternoon, Anton, from Artel. For me, it's the first game, one game, a great victory, very happy, but let's see how we go away at Goodison. We need to use that game. We need to bottle that, channel that victory and push that into the game at Goodison Park. 100%. Ruby Tuesday says, still buzzing after last night. Well done, team. Pgad says, this season is a roller coaster ride of emotions. It really is, because I think it's because, you know, we are, our expectations have been raised, and we want nothing but European football now. Like, we've had the taste and we don't want to miss out on that. Could you imagine going into next season with no European football? It would feel crap. It would feel crap. So we absolutely need to put that as a big priority. Play like that every week, and I'd be happy to keep Moyes for as long as possible. The problem is now we need to see that consistent play every single week. But what will they do for the Everton game away at its former club, who have just had a boost of 4 points back from 10 deducted? Will he go there with that mindset? I'm not sure he will. I'm really not sure he will. Why does he only do this when his job is on the line? Your question is as good as mine. Paketa makes Emerson tick. He knows he will get the ball if he bombs forward. Honestly, the interlinking play between them all was phenomenal. And that's what I'm trying to say about a player of the quality of Paketa, because he brings the best out in everyone, whether he's actually physically involved in the gameplay at that moment, or you can see the players' minds ticking that he is going to run into spaces, or they can run into spaces, knowing that he will find the ball. He's just such a clever footballer, and he is such a breath of fresh air in the West Ham shirt, and you can see clearly how much we missed him, want more of this feeling, please. Absolutely. I felt like it was a distant memory of how we as West Ham fans forgot what it was like to win a game. And that's the first one of 2024 on the 26th of February of 2024. First win this year. Very tough to deal with. I don't think that if you're right about the contract that Moyes will sign it will because his ego would not accept it. He's too stubborn to concede power to anyone else. There's so many different dynamics of it. Listen, we'll never know. We can all make our judgments. I can make my judgment. You can make your judgment on it. I think the real situation comes down to whether or not they believe there's something there. I find it odd if there isn't a contract on the table that Moyes would say it. I think then I would be concerned, because if someone spoke out and said no, there isn't a contract on the table, then why would the manager speak out and say it? So there must be something there that's reputable for him to look at. But I do think the reason he is considering it is based upon whether or not he wants to change what he's got to do, and that is definitely going to be probably the key element here. Defensive mistakes when we play attacking football like that is not bad. Doing the same mistakes when we sit back all game is 10 times worse. 100% it is, but it's still something we need to work on, because last year our defense record was so good, but our attacking record wasn't as great. But we've just flipped it, and I can't fathom how that can be so different. In both the seasons, we concede a lot more goals. Essentially, though, as long as you score more than you concede, you win. And that's the key part here to take from it. But it would be nice just to see out a game nice and early and be able to maybe, bring on some of the other players. But that doesn't happen, does it? So Tom felt nervous with Zuma all game, looked so uncomfortable and unfit. If he was a racehorse, it would be one for the glue factory, though Mavropanos had his best game. And I completely agree with you. Again, I'll put my hands up. I've dug Mavropanos out quite a few times, but yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it was his best game. Sofa scored Zuma higher than Dinos. That's a place we use to get our stats, all that sort of stuff, but they've scored him higher in the ratings than Mavropanos, which I find really odd. I would not have scored Zuma up higher than Konstantinos Mavropanos, but I'd be intrigued to see a Mavropanos and a Gerd partnership for the end of the season, because Zuma, I don't know why we consistently play with Zuma, because his legs are absolutely shot, no pace at all, and when they step out, it's problematic. Laura says, "Did you see that coming?" But so glad, did not see that coming, but so glad for all the players to get that result, especially Bowen. 14 goals in the Premier League this season, 2 away from matching Paulo Di Canio's Premier League record, and he's on target for 20 goals in a season. Jared Bowen is a winger who's been playing up top. Unbelievable for him. Unbelievable player. Absolutely. It has to be a Gerd and Mavropanos going forward, surely, with Zuma's knees. I agree with you. It has to be 100%. Feel for Zuma if he is picked to play. Can he refuse? I mean, listen, I don't think he wants to refuse. I don't think he needs to refuse. I think he feels like he is fit. He does not look fit. So, if you believe in yourself, then you're not going to turn around and say it. I don't understand why he is still playing, because it's very clear to see that he is struggling. I think that Zuma actually had an okay-ish game. Okay-ish. Not amazing, not crap, okay-ish. I think recently he's been quite crap, but I think he had an okay-ish game. He was doing his blocks. He was heading the ball clear a few times, but we were caught because of his errors or his marking ability, and that's something I think we definitely struggle with. You seem to play the low block as Zuma has no pace anymore, and the one ball he just hoofs it, and players avoid passing to him. It's true, but we do that probably from all of the back line. It really frustrates me a lot. And that's the Moyes tactics, is we do a lot of hoofball up forward and we don't really play the ball to feet through the back line. A couple of occasions last night, I felt like we did play the ball through the back line better than we normally do, but there is still a lot more hoofball than normal. I believe that if we go 2-0 up, we'll go back to play his old style again. I think we probably did that with 20 minutes to go. We had that cushion and we resorted bit back to type. So refreshing to see us play with a smile and a swagger. It feels like such a distant memory, Tom, doesn't it? It really does. Leave us, Salo. What are we? What are we, mate? Hit the like button, you sexy lot. Come on, your irons. We're massive overland and see. Acid Jokes is a great game, a great result, great performances still. Some fatalities at the back. Zuma still a few peers when we were very passive, but at least we carried the threat of breaking this time. 100%. I didn't hear anyone complaining when Brentford scored as we were pressing and being positive, reminiscent of Harry Redknapp's approach. Do you know what? It's true. When you press, you're going to open up those gaps. I think that if we had, honestly, genuinely believe if we had the pace in the back line there, we would have definitely stopped possibly those 2 goals. And I'm not, it's a famous Irish saying, if you had a square hole, you'd be shitting bricks. But I honestly believe there is some form of truth to that. Like, I'm not saying if it was just a Gerd, but if you had, say, like a Jonathan Tan and a Gerd or a Mavropanos and a Gerd, I wonder if one of them who steps out like Mavropanos, you'd have a Gerd to be able to cover in terms of his pace. That's definitely the thing there. It's amazing that Paketa's influence on the rest of the team when he's there, the others have a lot more confidence, or is it he doesn't learn the game plan and frees up others? 100%. I think it's all of that. He does. He's such a clever footballer. It's as simple as that. Sometimes when you've got players like that, you've got to let them do what they do. Dimitri Payet's of the world, the Lucas Paquetas of the world, you've just got to let them be what they do. And you could see it very early on. West Ham's most attacks came up from the first 5 minutes, all led really from a Paketa creation starting point. And that free-flowing football down that left-hand side, ticky-tacky football, in, out, space, run, play the ball through, was all led from him. I was there last night. The atmosphere was awesome. Yep, we all know it's capable of doing that under the lights at the London Stadium. It is so not Moyes, the style of play last night. No, absolutely. It's definitely a breath of fresh air to see, but who knows? Scott says a Gerd and Dinos have been burned, but usually when covering for Zuma, I think a Gerd is done. Anton, I don't agree. I think it was interesting to see him being dropped last night, but we all are in agreement that Zuma should have been dropped, not a Gerd. And I think more West Ham fans would be keen to see a Gerd play than Zuma right now, even though people feel like there's an error in a Gerd. I feel like the errors coming from Zuma are too many now. At 4-1 up, I thought we might see Earthy and Scars. We've got 34-year-old Antonio walking about uninterested. We're never going to see that, mate. Yemeni. We're never going to see that. But wouldn't that be nice? Yes. How did Saka get Prem Player of the Week? Big Six bias me thinks. You can say that again. I'm not sure Zuma would get my seats in. Get to my seat in row 67. The hoofball was so bad they were chasing their own hoofs to head away. Zuma was dragged too often, my forward, into midfield. Still feel Alvarez, a centre-back, and Phillips, a centre defensive midfielder, and Mavropanos or a Gerd is a worthwhile test. Tom, I completely think that is something that Moyes will definitely try at some point this season. At some point, the thing will switch in his brain and it will go, do you know what? We have to remember, listen, I think Alvarez is unbelievable in our midfield. He's so dynamic. He always touches the ball. He always breaks up the play. He's really good at grabbing the ball and driving forward. And I feel like he could be potentially the answer for our central defence if we want to shut up shop. But then what hole does that create in the middle of the park? We have brought in Calvin Phillips, and we will experiment with Calvin Phillips. Be prepared for that. He is not going to sit on the bench and do nothing. It's not happening. So be prepared for a Calvin Phillips introduction into this team. It will happen. So that could be an option as well. Ruby Juice said, I think Zuma's playing his best football at the moment, not up to everyone's standards. West Ham are massive everywhere we go. Games won without Paketa. An interesting stat that was sent out from the Premier League this morning. 19 games that Paketa has played in this season. Are you ready for this? And West Ham have won 11. And we've played 7 games without Paketa, and we've won none. We score, on average, 1.8 goals per match when Paketa plays. We score 0.7 goals when Paketa does not play. Goals conceded per match, when he plays, it's 1.5. We concede 1.5 in average goals. And 2.4 goals conceded per match without Paketa. And the points per match when he plays is 1.9 on average. And when he doesn't play, it's 0.4. Says it all in the tin. Last player to score at least 20 goals for us in the season. Harewood and Sheringham in the 24-20 championship season. I think Gerd has more to give. I agree. I know Souček missed a couple of chances, but let's not forget Paketa missed 2 chances too. Yep, unbelievable, isn't it? Gerd over Zuma all day. Typical West Ham player, nice to watch, but has an error. If he didn't have an error, he would be at Liverpool. So there you go. So if you want to come on and have a chat, you're more than welcome. There's a number there, ring it up, come and have a dial. But I'm going to get started on today's cheeky little ratings for you. So if you are watching, let me just change that in the background. There you go. Right, Alphonse Areola, goalkeeper. I thought he made some quality saves last night. In actual fact, you could actually say he kept us in the game as such, because there was probably 2 particular saves at the end, near the end of the game, and one during the game, kind of in the middle session. And I thought he really kept us in it. Absolutely. He's really coming to the forefront of showing us what he's capable of doing as a goalkeeper for West Ham. So for me, I have given Areola an 8, and I think that's a deserved 8. But I'm absolutely open to your options and your choices. So Tom Budden has said, giving him a 7. Acid Joke says Areola gets a cheeky 8. Scott says that was a decent game by Souček. He looked very different player and showed leadership. Yeah, absolutely. Under Moyes' ball, we've conceded 16 shots at goal in 13 games. That's why we conceded so much. Areola gets an 8 from you, Ludders. James Bond gives him an 8. Scott gives him an 8 too. Huge saves. I think it was 3 really big saves in that game. Artel gives him an 8. Alan Dunn gives him an 8 also. Andrew Jordan says 8. Wish he'd come for more corners. And 9 for Areola from Anthony Taylor. Ari Avitz, 7 from Michael Blease. And Stuart Burt gives him a 7. So I think we're all kind of predominantly in agreement that Areola, the wrong one. Areola gets a cheeky 8. Right, next up for you all to discuss is Vladimir Coufal back in the side at the right back position. Again, I thought Coufal had a decent game. I think Brentford's best player on the park probably was Lewis Potter. He was switching up play. He was going down the right-hand side, going down the left-hand side, and I think whatever side he was at, he caused that player problems. He was getting in behind and he was getting the crosses in. And sometimes, if you remember in the first half in particular, a couple of balls were going over the top of Zuma's head. Tony was diving at the chances and missing them. And Tony wasn't at the races, of course, yesterday. But I think player like Vladimir Coufal held his own within reason, but I don't think he was anything special, but I don't think he was anything crap either. So for that reason, I've given him a cheeky 7 for Vladimir Coufal. So if you are watching, put your chat ratings in the chat just now. As a joke says Coufal 7. Alan Dunn says Coufal gets a 7. Tom said 7. Ludder says 7. Anthony Taylor says 8. Vlad was the impaler mode 7. Artel 7. Andrew Jordan says he's a leader, gives him an 8. Coufal 7, but only because he's frustrated their winger. Great assist 2. Coufal 7.5. Lewis Potter was great. Vlad 7 plus good assist 2. There you go. So we are in agreement today. We're doing quite well with our cheeky little agreeances today, aren't we? Right, next up is the man who's on the tip of every West Ham tongue, and it is Kurt bloody Zouma. The man who looks like his legs are definitely done in, no ifs or buts or maybes. I don't think he had a crap game. I don't think he had an amazing game. I think he was just a bit above crap. But his legs are short, his legs are done. And I think it's time that we need to really look at pushing Zuma on. Harshly, people may say I've given him a 6. I think he is the lowest scored player in this for me today in the ratings. So if you are watching, put it in the comments and let me know what you would give Kurt Zuma. Yemeni Billy Bob says Zuma gets a 6 from you. Matt Foster gives him a 5. Andrew Jordan gives him a 4. Good grief. Ludders gives him a 6. Acid Joke says a 6 for him as well. Tom Budden gives him a 5. I mean, there's probably real reason there. And as I said earlier on, SofaScore, reputable website, scored him higher than Dinos Konstantinos Mavropanos. So yeah, James Bond gives Zuma a 6. Artel gives him a 5. Michael gives him a 5. Ruby Tuesday gives him a 6. Stuart Burke gives him a 6. Zuma should retire now. 6. 5 for those clearances went nowhere. Ruby Tuesday said Zuma did his best, but it's just not good enough, is it? It is just not good enough. Right, let's move into his centre-back compatriot, and it's Konstantinos Mavropanos, who, you know, for some people probably played his best game for West Ham last night. I genuinely think he was a standout player for us last night in the centre-back pairing. I think he dealt with any of the crosses that came in. I think he really put to bed any threat from Ivan Toney, so much so that Ivan Toney had to move out to the wing pretty much most of the game to stay away from Mavropanos. Any header that came in over the top, Mavropanos was over the top of them, winning the headers. And I thought his passing range was quite good in the game yesterday. So for that reason, I gave him an 8. So Ruby Tuesday gives Dinos a 6.5. Dinos gets an 8 from Yemeni. Billy Bobby Mavropanos gets a 7. Dino gets a 7. Dinos can play 8. James Bond gives him a 7. Ludders gives him an 8. Tony 7. Anthony Taylor gives him an 8. Tom Budden gives him an 8. Mavropanos was immense. He gets an 8 from Alan, an 8 from Matt Foster. Artel gives him an 8. And Stuart Burt also gives Mavropanos a cheeky 8. Scott gives him man of the match if it wasn't for the Bowen hat trick, of course, if it wasn't for that. Let's move over to the man who got on the score sheet, and that is Emerson Palmieri. And for me in particular, this guy has been one of my favorite players this season. I think he's really stood out. He's risen to the occasion, and from last season in particular, that final against Fiorentina, he seems to be going from strength to strength. Lewis Potter did give him problems. That's probably why I scored him a slightly bit lower, but no one can fault his goal and his determination to get forward. He absolutely does get forward, and that goal alone was worth a point in itself, 100%. So maybe harshly, I've given him an 8, but I think it's the right thing because I do think Lewis Potter caused him some concern, but he loves that, sparks that partnership up with his mate Paketa, and that's the big difference when he comes in, isn't it? So Emerson 9, such a great player when Paketa is next to him. Yemeni gives him a 9. James Bond gives him an 8. Tom Budden gives him an 8. Andrew Jordan gives him an 8. Is back looked happy, absolutely. Emerson gets a 9 from Ludders. Artel gives him a 9. Tony gives him an 8. Emerson gets 7 + 1 for that goal. Michael Blees. Matt Foster gives him a 7. Stuart Burt from X gives him a 10. What a worldie from our own Emerson, who gets an 8. Scott says 7 + 1 for the goal. Ruby Tuesday, Emerson gets a 9. 8 got up and down well. Great goal from Anthony Taylor. And David Harris gives Emerson an 8. What a hit. And it really was a very, very good hit. Let's talk about Tommy Soucek, the man in the middle that a lot of fans have criticised this season, even last season as well. But with all, no disrespect to him or anyone else, I thought he had a very, very good game, a very influential game, a very interactive game, a game that he got his foot on the ball. He broke up a lot of play. He drove the ball forward. He won his headers. In actual fact, I think it was 2 clear-cut chances, and I can't remember if one of them was offside, but probably should have been on the score sheet at least once. Should have been on the score sheet. But for that reason, I thought he had a really good game. I gave him an 8 as well. I thought he did play really well and looked good, and we want more of that, Tommy Soucek, as well. Tom Budden gives him a 7. Tony gives him a 6. Soucek says missed 2 good opportunities to score, gets a 7 for that. Tati was great, defended every corner, could could have got a trick himself for 8. Souček gets an 8. Souček's best game for a long time with a 7. Andrew Jordan, 8, tidy and alive, takes one of his chances, could have been a 9. Best game by Souček in a while, solid 6. Ludders gives him a 7. Ruby Tuesday gives him an 8. James Bong says an 8. Stuart Burt says 8. Need to score more goals. Anthony Taylor said worked hard and gets a 7. And I think, yeah, if he banged in a goal, he definitely would have gone a higher score. And the funny thing is, if Moyes loves him to the level that we all believe he does, then you get the best out of him when West Ham played like that. Honestly, like so play like that. Play like that every week, because that is what we'll do. 8 for Potato Salad King. So there you go. Tommy Souček has been rated from you. Now, El Machine, Edson Alvarez, the man. I'm not going to lie to you. I love this geezer. I love this geezer. I think he is so impactful on the game. He's grit, determination. He chases things like a pit bull terrier in the middle of the park and never gives up. He steps in when a defender tends to move out of position. He draws back. He wants to collect the ball. He takes the ball. He drives forward. It's about the things he does with the ball, not just off the ball. I think he's really influential for this team. Such an important player. And I didn't think we could find someone as good as this player we have, but you've got to credit Tim Steidten for this find. So for that reason, I've given him an 8 as well. I thought he had a very, very good game in a West Ham shirt. Tony gives him a 9. Ruby Tuesday gives him a 9.5. Michael Blees says Alvarez 9. Silly booking puts him 1 away from a ban. Do you know what? It comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. I get it, silly bookings, but it does. He gets booked a lot. He's done it his whole career. Acid Joke, Alvarez 8, so solid. Andrew Jordan 8, no sulking last night. Up for it. Alvarez was superb last night. 9, 8. We would be so lost without him. Tom Budden gives him an 8. James Bond gives him an 8. Alvarez, Edson would have been 9 if it not stupid booking for kicking the ball away. 8 to 10, put him in the defense for a try. I can see it happening. I really can see it happening. Our future captain for me plays with passion 100%. Absolutely. Definitely got leadership. Definitely got that leadership ability. Build a team around players like him and obviously the forwards going forward. But such an influential player for West Ham. 9 for Martel, 8 for Alvarez, 9 if he didn't get booked as well. There you go. So there's your ratings for El Machine in the middle of the park. Let's talk about James Ward-Prowse. Still hanging on to get that goal to match David Beckham's free kick tally. 1 more goal away to match the record. I thought he had a decent game. I don't think, for me, he was the standout of the 3. I think Alvarez and Souček were the standout of the 3. But then again, if I go by my mantra of last season, then I think some of the players that go under the radar sometimes perform in other mannerisms. You know, I spoke to Russ today. Russ felt like Ward-Prowse was higher rated and should be higher rated than what more than Souček and Alvarez were. And we disagreed, but that's fine. That's football. That's what we are allowed to do. But I am maybe thinking there's a thing here that I don't want JWP to just be undroppable because he is a David Moyes man. I'm not saying he's at the stage where he needs to be dropped. I'm absolutely not. But I get the vibe that that could be something that could come along the way down the line. So we need to keep an eye on that. I think Ward-Prowse did perform well as such. I mean, I rated him 7, the lowest of those trio of midfielders in the middle of the park. Let me know what your thoughts are for JWP. Tom gave him a 7 for JWP. Michael Blees, our worst midfielder. Ludder says a 7. James Bong says a 7. 7 needs to feed the goat. Tony 7, JWP 7. JWP improved, but needs to do a bit more. 7. He was decent. He progressed the ball well in the 10 spot as his best position. Solid 6. JWP is a tidy 7. JWP is closing down. It's like my dog when he chases a cat, looks threatening, but when he gets close, he slows down as he doesn't really want it. A 7. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting take. Listen, I don't think he's by no means at the stage where he needs to be dropped or anything like that, but I want to see more output again, and I feel like at the start of the season, you know, there was a glitch in the game, and that was the thing we were talking about. The glitch was we've got James Ward-Prowse, but we need to get that James Ward-Prowse back. So let's hope that now we've got this dynamic trio up top that we can find the better days of James Ward-Prowse, of course. Right. Mo Kudus. I honestly thought he was effing phenomenal last night. His desire, his drive, his engine, his strength, his ability is everything. And honestly, he got an assist. He was so unlucky not to have a goal. If he'd have got a goal, he would have been, or a couple of goals, he'd have been up there with man of the match. I thought he was honestly fucking brilliant, really, really good, and done everything. Got an assist on the day, but I've scored him highly. You know, I've given him a 9. People might disagree with me on this one, but honestly, if he had bagged a goal, you know, or 2, he'd be up there with Jared Bowen for man of the match performance. I thought he was honestly, it was like it was like he was like, oh, thank God we've got this other like it's not just on me now to create. We've got Paketa over the other side who can create, and I can do what I need to do. He tracks back, he goes forward, does everything, and I think he's such a brilliant player. Tom gives him an 8. Kudus 8, always exciting. 9 to see him alone. 9 for Kudus. He tore them to shreds. King Kudus gets a 9. 8 from Michael Blease. Needs to look up more sometimes. Ruby Tuesday gives him an 8. James Bond gives him a 9. Tony 9. Mo 9 from Luthers. Alan Dunn says Kudus Magic was a 9. Stuart Burt says 10. What a player the Hammers have got. I can't give him a 10 because he didn't score. And obviously, if you've got a hat trick, you're going to score a couple of Brucey bonus points for that. My goodness, what a player. I'm going to go 10. He caused them fits all game. We won't be able to keep him long. He did. He caused them so much concern. Like, they were panicking. They were absolutely panicking down that side. Wherever he went, they were panicking. King Kudus gets a 9 from Martel. I'd love to see Kudus and Bowen as a 2 up front. To be honest with you, Matt, I wouldn't. I want him to be where he is and cause the concern and build the team in around players like Kudus, man. Honestly, unbelievable. 8 gets you on your feet when he runs forward. Absolutely. Gets you on your feet when you see his name on the team sheet. Holy shit. 8.5 from Daniel Spence. Imagine him in his natural 10 spots. All very scary days when you think about these players like that as well, isn't it? It really, really is. So, yeah, fair shout to Mo Kudus. Now that we're on to the second of the dynamic trio that we've got here, the terrifying trio, whatever you want to call them. That one's for you, Russ, if you are watching. Paketa. For me, it wasn't just about what he did on the ball, what he did about off the ball. Spoke about it earlier in the show, so I don't need to go over it again. When Paketa plays for West Ham, he's played 19 games in the Premier League season. West Ham have won 11. Without him, 7 games, we've won none. Goals scored per match, 1.8 when he plays. When he does not play, it's 0.7 on average. Goals conceded per match when he plays is 1.5, and without him, it's 2.4. And points per match we get with him is 1.9, and without him, it's 0.4. There's your answer. That's all you need. That is all you need for Lucas Paketa. I give him a 7. I give him a fucking 7. I gave him a 7 on the basis that I've given, like, I don't know, maybe that's harsh. Maybe I should have given him an 8. Maybe I should have given him an 8. People will laugh at that, but anyway, maybe I should have given him an 8. So maybe I'll take that one back. Daniel Spence says 8.5. Sorry, no, that's Packet. Not there we are. Tony gives him a 9. Paketa 11 out of 10. Incredible. Betfred 8. 9 brings so much on the flank with Emerson. Pac-Man 9, best thing since Pyatt. 8. Pac-Man 9 would have been 10 if those chances had gone in. I think I should have given him an 8. Oh, harsh. With their difference, Pac-Man makes again with him. I got to go 9. Paketa 8. Paketa didn't look 100%, yet he shows so much passion. He raises the team. He's better than that. 9 of our Brazilian Magnifico. Ignore me. It's a mistake. It's an error. I don't know why I've put 7. It should be an 8. I want him to be an 8. Yeah, love the tricks. Play him as a number 10. The problem you've got, Stuart Burt, is everyone wants him to play as a number 10. Everyone wants Kudus to play as a number 10. Everyone wants Suchek to play as a number 10. Everyone's like, there's too many players to play in the number 10. We won't be able to keep him long. He makes our offense tick. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely right. Finally, last but not least, let's talk about Mr. Jared Bowen, Mr. Hat Trick. I mean, what a performance. He looked so dangerous, didn't he? And he looked like he was back to his best again, maybe coming away from being the main man up top, relying and having that creative ability. What you found really interesting was wherever he went, you knew that ball was going to be put to his feet. And then when you have that ability from someone like Paketa, then you've got goal creation in abundance, and players like Jared Bowen want that, and balls were put to his feet, put to his head, and he found that opportunity, and he bagged the hat trick, and for that alone he gets a 10. I don't think you can score. The man who scores a hat trick that wins the game is an absolute 10 out of 10. Tom Budden gives him a 10. Acid Joke gives him a 10. Bowen simply scintillating. His ability to slow the game down and progress the ball quickly causes teams fits. And Bowen, mate, Oh my days, man. His ability to track back. He tracks back all the time. I remember David Moyes talking about him last season, saying that Jared Bowen's the sort of player that needs to play every game. He doesn't necessarily need a lot of rest. He's the sort of player that doesn't react well to rest and he has to play. And I think that's why he plays all the time. Ignore that, mate. Ignore that. Tony gives him a 10. Bowen, man of the match, 10. 11, big boy. Bowen, 11. Bowen gets a 10. He's on fire. James says Bowen 5+5 is 10, 100 player of the season, and we'll get in the England squad. Bowen on fire. Bowen gets 10 star. What more can you say? 10 for Bowen. He's epic as yes, he is. Bowen is a 10. His first hat trick, and what a way to do it! Absolutely. Bowen 10. The way he runs at the keepers, absolutely, totally stresses them out left, right, and center. Bullseye. He was man of the match. Bowen's on fire, and he's the promise of a 10. In this team, he's shipped and shed a load. Lucas Paketa should be our captain. This pains me, but the fact that they've changed our formation on Saturday, I have to give Moyes an 8. But I dock him a mark. I'm not giving Earthy a few minutes at the end. Right. Well, let's do it. I haven't put it in there, but let's talk about David Moyes. Right. Let's talk about David Moyes for this game, not for the season. So mark up David Moyes for this game. And tell me why you've marked it before we do go. Because I do need to go. I need to go back to my old work. So let me know what you would score cheeky little David Moyes out of 10. I'm going to mark David Moyes an 8. And I'm going to mark him an 8 because I think what we saw was a David Moyes resort to type at the end of the game. Look at that. I think I get an 8. I mean, you've seen there was a lot of chat between him and David Moyes there. There's a lot of he resorted to type with 20 minutes to go, and that's really what caused us concerns near the end of the game. So yeah, I'll give him an 8 for last night, but I'll reduce the point if we don't turn up and do something similar against Everton. Moyes gets an 8 for loosening the shackles. Moyes gets a 7. Tony gives him a 5. Stuart Burt gives him a 7.5. Tom Budden gives him an 8 as well. Can't score that one. Have the players revolted? 7. Andrew Jordan. Moyes gives him a 6. Peter Jones gives David Moyes a 9. Expected you in there, Peter. Expected you in there, Peter. Right, listen, I do need to go, so thank you very much for joining us on this particular show today. Now, what have we got coming your way? We have a youth show coming your way, so keep your eye on the channel for the youth show. That will be live around about the mid-afternoon, so keep your eye on that one. That will be coming live. I think it's around about 4 o'clock, your Hammers headlines. And then later tonight, we will have Alex on for his TikTok takeover, and he'll be discussing all things West Ham. So that's at 9 o'clock tonight. So make sure you join us for that one. Loads more stuff coming your way. Make sure you join us tomorrow. I'll do an Anton Reacts talking about your direct comments to us. And I'll be answering your questions. So thank you very much all for watching. Take it easy. And of course, come on, you wonderful Irons. 3 points. We'll take that. Come on, you Irons.